Students, in the last class, we have started the topic of functional dependencies. See, what is the functional dependencies we have seen? So before understanding the normalization in the database management system, first we need to understand what is meant by the functional dependencies. Functional dependencies is not mentioned in your curriculum specifically or explicitly, I can say, but without knowing these things, you will not able to understand the, what is meant by the normalization and how we can implement the normal form. So functional dependencies, we have seen what is mean by the functional dependency with help of the examples. We have seen in simple way. After this point, we have a next point that is the type of the functional dependencies. This type of the functional dependencies is more important. So let me move to the next slide, which describes the many things. We have the four types of the functional dependencies. One is trivial functional dependencies, non-trivial functional dependencies, multi-valued functional dependencies, and transitive functional dependencies. Trivial functional dependencies and non-trivial functional dependencies will be applicable in the first normal form and second normal form. Multi-valued dependencies or multi-valued functional dependencies will be available in the fourth normal form and multi-valued normal form. And if we're talking about the transitive functional dependencies, that is applicable into the 3NF. So first normal form, second normal form, third normal form, and BCNF, and then fourth NF, and then multi-valued normal form, and PZNF, and fifth normal form we have. So before moving to the step by step each and every normal form, let us understand its basic types of the functional dependencies. Then we will understand why it is the meaning of the normal form and how to understand the normal form in practical part or the theoretical part. Trivial functional dependencies, we have to start the first. So I have a very simple example by which everything will be clear to all. This is simple example. It's basic simple example. What is a trivial functional dependency? The dependency of an attribute on a set of the attributes is known as a trivial functional dependency if the set of the attributes include that attribute. That is a good point we have to understand. So dependencies of the attribute is a set of depend on the set of the attribute is known as a trivial functional dependency. What is mean by this one? So look at the example at the top side. I have already written. AB is a set of AB is determinant to the AB. AB is what? That is set of the attribute. A and B are the both two attributes, two different attributes, and I'm putting these two attributes in a set. Then this becomes a set of the attributes. So AB determinant to AB. So this is what, this is all the attribute on the right side we have, that is depend on the attributes depend on the right side, left side we have. So AB depend on the AB and ADB determinant to DB. So this is a simple example we can understand. But from the student relation, you can see, observe over here, name, address, and age are the three different attributes, and I'm putting in a set of the set. So now this is known as the set of the our attributes in a group. So if an age attribute that is depend on the set of the attribute, that is the name, address, and age, that is kind of the example which is known as the trivial functional dependencies. So the symbol we can say A determinant to B, and that is a trivial functional dependency, and B should be the subset of the A. So B could be the single attribute or could be the set of the attribute, and A would be the single attribute or A could be the set of the attribute undoubtedly. Now it is clear to all right now?
Yes, sir.
This simple example I am taking here, and everything is written over here. So if you feel any doubt, so you can ask me anytime. So this is the point you have to understand. So trivial functional dependency is clear to all right now?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
I'm taking one more example. In a faculty, in a student database, suppose in a student relation, student roll number, student name, and student class. These are the three different attributes I'm putting in a set, and this set of the attribute is determinant to student class. So class is a part of the this set that is written on the left side. So we can say the class is an attribute that is depend on the set of the attribute, that is a combination of the student name, age, student name, class, and course we can say. So that is the only meaning. Now what is the this example? This is one more example. I can say student ID is a subset of the, or is a part of the student ID and student name. So student ID, student name is a set of the attribute, and student ID is an attribute. So student ID will be this dependencies is known as the triple dependencies. Now it is clear to all right now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So now, what is a non-trivial dependencies? Non-trivial function dependency is saying to us if a function dependency x determinant to y holds true where y is not a subset of the x. That's simple meaning. Can anyone tell me the real example? Can anyone tell me a real example of the non-trivial function dependencies?
Like anything which does not include in the superset. Like
Yes.
A, B, and C is not a subset of A and B combination.
Just super. It's a brilliant answer. I got it. Definitely. So what is the point you are observing over here? If I have a set of the attribute which is written on the left hand side A, B, C. So I'm putting the D on the right side. So D is depend on the A, B, C. So this is dependencies is a kind of a dependencies, but that is known as the non-trivial function dependencies. So address status I'm putting, and that is depend on the student name and student state. So address is not a part of the student name and other student states combinations of set of the attribute we can say. So we can say this kind of functional dependencies enter come into the non-trivial. Now this is the point. Now it is clear to all right now. And on the right, yeah, good. So in the right side you have the, you can see the another example. CD are the two attributes which are depend on the AB, but these are not AC and D are not part of the AB group or AB set of the attributes. So this is known as the non-trivial function dependency. Okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, good. So here we have one more example. Employee name is depend on the employee ID, or it means employee ID is determinant to the employee name. So employee name is not a subset of employee ID, and employee address is also depend on the employee ID. So what happened? This is known as these are the example of the non-trivial functional dependency. So that is the simple way we have to understand. Now, on the other hand, the following dependencies are the trivial. Employee name is depend on the employee ID and employee name. So employee name we have over here. So it means this is a kind of the trivial function dependency. That is a little bit difference you have to understand. Now it is clear to all right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I have taken some example over here in front of the students. There is relation A, B, C, D, E. So list of the attributes I'm choosing over here. There's a functional dependency I'm putting A, B, and A. So A is determinant. A is depend on the AB, or AB is determinant to the A. So this dependency is known as the trivial. Is it true? Is it true or false?
Yes.
Tell me right now. Is it true? A is determinant to, yeah, A is depend on the AB, so it is true. Good. And CE are determinant to CE are dependent on the C, A, and E. So it would be trivial or it would be non-trivial.
Trivial.
Why? Can you tell me right now?
Like
Can you tell
C, no, C depend on CI.
C and E both attributes are the part of the A, B, A and E set of the attributes, because both attributes C and E are also available here. So that's why it is known as the trivial attribute. That is only mean. Now it is clear.
Yes, sir.
So next,
Like sir, if in second, like CAE is a superset and C is a subset, so it is a trivial. Like if the given like subset is C and D, then it will also called the trivial or non-trivial.
it will be considered into the partial trivial dependency. So that is the fourth example we have over here. D and A and D both are depend on the ABE. So A is one attribute which is matching on the our left hand side set of the attributes. So that's why it is known as the partial trivial. Now it is clear. See,
Okay.
it is neither non-trivial or not trivial. So that's why it is enter come into the partial trivial. Look at the fourth example.
Okay, sir.
Okay. And look at the third example. C is only the attribute that is depend on the D and B. So what is this? This is the non-trivial attribute or non-trivial functional dependencies. Now it is clear. So these are the simple example I have taken over here. Now is it clear to all right now?
Yes, sir.
So far we have seen the two different type of the functional dependencies. One is non-trivial and other one is a trivial functional dependencies. Good. Now, next we have the definition, completely non-trivial functional dependencies. So this completely non-trivial functional dependency, that is we are not talking about the partial functional dependency. It means we are talking about the complete non-trivial functional dependencies. So if a functional dependency X determinant to Y holds true, where X intersection Y is null, it means no single attribute are matching at the our superset. So what the output we will see, that is a 0. So it means we are getting the intersection point between the X and Y, we are getting the null. So then this dependency is to have to be a completely non-trivial functional dependence. That is example of the non-trivial, but if it is at least one part is matching, so one attribute is matching to the superset, then we can say it is partial trivial. So that is neither a non-trivial nor a trivial. So we can say that is a partial trivial, but the partial trivial can be considered sometimes into the non-trivial in some other books. So we have to clarify what is a complete non-trivial. Complete non-trivial means if you apply the intersection between the X and Y, and definitely we must get the outcome as a 0 or null. So we have this is a complete non-trivial functional dependence. That is a pure functional dependence, non-trivial functional dependence is we have. Now this definition is clear right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Now, next one, C was our third functional dependencies, that is the multi-valued functional dependencies. The application of the multi-valued functional dependency is applicable in the four normal form or the multi-valued normal form. So when we will discuss about the multi-valued normal form or four normal form, then we will use such kind of the functional dependency. So first and second normal form, we will use the non-trivial or trivial functional dependencies. That is only. But when talking about the multi-valued functional dependencies, so that is a point you have to understand. So look at its definition part. Multivalued dependency occurs where there are more than one independent multivalued attributes in a table. I'm speaking once again, just look at my highlighted points over here. More than one independent multivalued attributes in a table. More than one independent multivalued attributes in a table. And what is a multivalued attributes? You remember? You have remembered all this definition. We have seen this concept in the types of the attributes. Composite attribute, multivalued attribute, single attribute, if you remember. Okay, so from the multivalued
Yes.
attribute, yeah, so from see everything we have to keep in mind properly from the past lectures. So what is multivalued attribute? We know. So when we have the more than one multivalued attribute, so it means we're talking about the such dependencies. We are using multivalued attributes. So that is known as the multivalued dependencies. And look at its definition part. A multivalued dependency is a fully constraint between two sets of the attributes. I'm speaking once again. A multivalued dependency is a full constraint between two sets of the attributes in a relation. In contrast to a functional dependencies, the multivalued dependency requires that certain tuples to be present in a relation. Okay, so please keep in mind the important term. A multi-value dependencies is a fully constraint between two sets of the attributes in a relation. In contrast to the fully dependencies, the multi-value dependency requires that certain tuples be present in a relation. Let us understand this thing by an example. Are you able to see this diagram or this tabular data?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So bike model is an attribute and manufacturing year is an attribute and color is an attribute. So manufacturing year is depend on the bike model. It means in which year this bike model was generated or in which year this bike model was produced or manufactured by a company. And color. Model to model we have a color. Suppose I'm choosing this model, one XYZ model, so it is running by this color only. So color, if color is depend on the bike model, color attribute is depend on the model attribute. So now what happened at that time, this is also known as the multi-valued, because more than one independent variable. What are the independent? Manufacturing year. Manufacturing year and colors are not dependent on each other. So it means manufacturing and colors both are the attribute. Those are depend on the bike model only. That is the only point you have to understand. So manufacturing years and color are become the independent variable, because these are not depend on the animal except to the one. So if single attribute, that is bike model, which are having indeterminate to the multiple independent variable or multiple independent attributes, then we have this attribute is enter come into this kind of the function dependency enter come into the our multi-valued dependencies. So here I am writing individually. Manufacturing year is depend on the bike model and color is depend on the bike model. So now these are known as the independent attributes. And these are what? These are the dependencies we have the individual. So bike model is common. So we can say the manufacturing year and color both are depend on the bike model. So such attribute, such dependencies enter come into the our multi-valued dependencies. Now it is clear to all right now. Tell me, is it clear? Anyone who have any doubt? Anyone who have to ask any question?
So, if there is an attribute like address, so its sub attributes are the flat number, the flat name, then city name, or the area name and city name and pin code. So the sub attributes will be the independent multi-valued attributes, and hence the address attribute will be a multi-valued functional dependency, right?
Okay. Okay.
Like that's my doubt. Like, will that example be a functional dependency example?
You people are need to keep in mind here. You have to choose the appropriate independent variable. So if you're choosing the city and you are choosing the state, so individually you can say city and state are the not independent variable, because city is depend on the state. Logically, you can logically implied should be properly.
Yes, sir.
City will be depend on the state, so you can't say the your area or other part that is determinant to the state or city, or city and state both are depend on the area. So you have to use proper logic. See, function dependency we are talking about the logically implied, so you have to use proper logic. Here I can take simple example. Suppose I'm taking an example of the room. In the room, so room number I'm putting over here. So the floor, or a number of the floor I can take. I'm taking simple example over here, number of floor. So number of floor are, or we can say other attributes. So number of floor are depend on the room number, or vice versa is possible. So we have to choose the appropriate thing properly what we are choosing. So room number is not depend on the number of the floor. Room number is not depend on the number of floor. Number of floor is not depend on the room number, because in which floor, which is the room number, is dependency we have or not. So logically it is not possible. Yeah, you can take this example like over here. In a number of the floors, in number or the floor number. So floor number is depend on the we can say room type. Yeah, room type. So in a specific floor we have a different type of the room. So room type is depend on the floor number. So I can write floor number, so room type. So suppose we have a single room, double room and triple room, different kind of the rooms category we have in a hotel. So room type is depend on the floor number, so that is the point. But room type and uh, the we can say the room size, both are dependent on each other. So here we can say the room type and room size are dependent on each other. Why? Because room size is depend on the room type, because one room is a different size and two rooms is double room is different size, and rooms or triple size room we have the different size. So room size depend on the room type. So here room type and room size will not be independent because those are dependent on each other. So you have to find the appropriate attributes because we are not discussing the 3 to 4 attributes to base a table. We can have the 10 to 12 attributes. So from these 10 to 12 attributes, you have to choose the appropriate attributes by which we can justify the words. So room type is depend on the floor number, that is agree, and I can say here the number of the conference room, number of the conference room. So number of the conference room are available on the specific floor number, so we can say. So room type and number of the conferences are not having any relationship. Why? Because number of the conference room is different value, and here room type is different values. Room type is determining the size of the room, but number of the conference means we are talking about the how many conference room we have in a such floor. So this is simple example I am taking over here. But number of the rooms and number room type and number of the conference are depend on the floor number. So here floor number will be the an attribute that is following by the multi-value. So that is a simple example you have to assume, but logically implied properly. And now table and chair. So in a room, number of table and number of chairs, of course, are these are the attribute that is depend on the room. Because if room size, if we have a hall type, so number of chair and number of the tables will be more than the compared by the small room size. So that is a simple example we have to identify properly. So dependencies we have to identify properly by logically dependencies. That is only my meaning. Okay, now it is clear.
Yes, sir.
So we have to identify the proper or see logical implement. You have to use the logical. You see, roughly we can't take any example. Everything will be fair. No, is it should be meaningful. It should have a senseful data. That is only point. So in a room, I'm just taking an example. In a room, we have the x number of the chair and y number of the table. So these are the two attributes which are depend on the room size. So this cannot be fulfilled the multi-valued. So if it is depend on the those room size, so we can say that is the multi-valued. So if number of the rooms and number of the rooms are yes, okay. So I can take one more example over here. So for a betterment, just let me add one more example. Let's add over here. So the thing will be more clear. See, this is the room type. I'm taking the simple example. Suppose in a floor we have a room type. So if I'm taking the x, that is a number of chair. This is the attribute you can say. This is the by which defines the number of the tables. So definitely based on the room type, we have to choose the number of the tables and number of the chairs. So this will be depend on the room type, and this also will depend on the this type. But is there a relationship between the number of the chair and number of the tables? That is the point. Can anyone tell me right now? Is there a relationship between the number of the chair and number of the table?
No, sir.
Why? Because if I'm having the 5 tables, so respectively, I need approx 10 tables or 10 chairs. Suppose I'm having the 5 tables, then I need the 10 chairs approx. So there is a relationship between. So if this relationship is persisting, so this cannot be multi-valued because that is a point we have to understand here. That is my point over here, my dear student. I'm speaking over here. These two attributes should be independent. But here I'm finding that these are not independent. These are dependent. Number of table and number of chairs are dependency. Because in a room, if I'm putting the 10 tables, So respectively, I need the 20 to 24 chairs. That is only data. Figure out how I'm speaking logically. So dependency we have over here. So that is the point. So this cannot be multivalued. Multivalued you can't see on the this point. Number of the chairs depend on the room type and number of tables depend on the room type. But here we have to identify the relationship between the all the independent variables or independent attributes. If they have a relationship, that multivalued attribute, multivalued dependencies should not be persist or cannot be applicable. So all the independent variable, all the independent attributes should be independent. No dependencies will be preserved. And if it is preserving dependencies, then it is not a multi-value. Rather than we can understand this could be the trivial dependencies. This could be trivial dependencies. Now clear right now? That is a little bit difference you
Yes.
have to understand. This is a little bit difference you have to understand. I'm speaking once again in the multi-value attribute, all the independent variable and all the independent attributes should be independent. There will be no connection between all the or among the all the attributes. Okay, now it is clear.
Sure, and the attributes don't need to be multi-valued. No?
If they have a relationship, if they have a dependencies, then such dependencies will not be stand as a multi-value.
Yes, we studied there's an attribute like phone number, so
Yeah.
it is multi-valued because there can be many phone numbers. So in this
If
multi-valued dependency, there doesn't need to be any multi-valued
see multi-valued, I'm speaking over here. This phone number you are speaking. Phone number. So tell me, what is the problem you are having? Phone number. I have the XYZ is a phone number and student name. Student name. So this phone number is depend on the student name. So this is the point. And other one we have the address. So this address is belong to the student address. So, but is there a relationship between the phone number and address? Is there a
sir.
relationship? No. It means both are independent. Both are independent from each other. Both are independent from each other. So that's why this could be the example of the multi-value. But if there is some relationship we are finding between the two different independent attributes, so this will not be multi-value attribute. That is only single point we have to understand.
So for multi-value dependency, just one condition that the attributes should not have any relation.
All the independent attributes should not have any dependencies between each other. If they have, so this will be transformed into the trivial dependencies rather than the multiple.
Okay, sir.
That is only single. See, that is the point we have to clarify. If you are see in the exam, if you are writing the simple example, that it seems to us it is trivial dependencies or transitive dependencies, but it is not a multi-value. So we have to identify what is a multi-value. Now look at the definition part once again. Multi-value dependency is fully constrained. It means we have to identify between the two sets of the attribute in a relation. In contrast to the functional dependencies, the multi-valued dependency requires certain tuples be present in a relation. That is the point. So multi-valued means multi-value, all the independent should be. So manufacturing year and bike model, these manufacturing years it depend on the bike model. I'm agree. Colors also depend on the bike model. I'm also agree. But manufacturing year and color, there is no relationship, and these would be independent. If they are having the independent, in 2007 the black color was black color we have introduced. The manufacturing companies you may introduce black color, and 2007 the black. So it should be black rather than the red. So if we have a dependency, then rather than the red, it should be black. So it means we are talking about dependency, but it does not have any kind of the dependencies. That is only meaning. So we have a multi-valued dependencies. Now it is clear to all right now. I have taken the many examples to explain this idea.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Transitive dependencies. Transitive dependencies coming from the transitive rules in the mathematics we have seen. If you remember the different rules of the mathematics between the set or that is a reflexive or association and transitive, so that is coming from this point right now. So a function dependency is said to be transitive function dependencies. It is indirectly formed by the two functional dependencies, x is determinant to z, or z is dependent on the y. Is a transitive dependencies if the following three functional dependencies holds true. X determinant to Y and Y determinant to Z. Okay, X determinant to Y and Y determinant to Z. So it means we can say X determinant to Z. But in between, please keep in mind, in between, Y should not determinant to X. Y should not determinant to X. If it is so, then we are not following the transitive dependencies. So transitive dependency can only occur in a relation of the three of the more attributes. These dependencies helps is us normalizing the database in third normal form. And the application of the transitive dependencies we have in third normal form. That is a point. So first, let me know right now. It is clear to all before moving to the example.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is a simple example I am taking right now. Book author and author is. So book, who is writing the book or who is the author of the book? So BSK is author of the XYZ book. So this is what dependency became. So author is depend on the book because author has written the book. So we have this point right now. But author books does not depend on the author. This book, database management system, is written by the XYZ author. So author is depend on the book only. But book title, the database management system is not depend on the author because there are many authors could be. You are not a, you do not have any copyright to this. You can write only this book only. Unlike you, there are many people who can write the same book. So author does not determine into the book or book is not depend on the author. That should be happen. But as an author, so an author belongs to the individual identity as a person. So he has some age or he belongs to some age criteria. So BSK belongs to 37 or RM belongs to 32 and PQ belongs to 35. This is only the random data I have taken over here. This is not my actual age. So author is determinant to the author age is dependent on the author. So author is determinant to the author age. So that is the point we have to understand. So we can say directly, the author is dependent on the book title, that is XYZ MN of ABC, based on the transitive dependencies. Now it is clear right now. This is the simplest example I have taken over here. It is clear all right now. Yes, tell me right now. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, tell me. Any problem? Is it clear to all right now? The transitive dependency is clear? Yes, tell me. Is it clear or not? Any doubt?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, good. So here we have some dependencies. Student data, I have taken student ID, student name, and marks. I have taken the one more additional attributes: student ID, student name, and marks. I have additional ID. Student name is depend on the student ID, and student ID is depend on the student name and student ID. So this is the what? This is the Treble relation. On first, tell me right now. It is already written. So student name is depend on the student ID. So this is what? This is a non-trivial or trivial? Yes, tell me. It is trivial or non-trivial?
So the first one is non-trivial.
Why? Could you tell me right now?
So because like there is no attribute, like no common attribute. So like it's not a subset of the dependent is not a subset of the determinant.
Okay, rather than speaking the common attribute is better idea, you have to speak the proper term in the database terminology. No attribute are mentioned in the left side, that is a subset, superset we can say. So it is not a subset. It is not a part of the subset. So as a technical definitive way we can say it is not a part of the subset which is written on the left side. So definitely it would be the non-trivial. Now it is clear? Yes, tell me right now. It is clear?
Yes, sir.
And student IDs depend on the student ID and student name. So here we are founding that is the student ID on the right hand side which is written, that is subset of the student ID and student name. So undoubtedly we can say this is a trivial function dependency. Now it is clear to us right now. This example is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, third example I have taken of the transitive function dependencies. Student name is determined depend on the student ID. Okay, no problem. We have taken the previous part. But student name should not be determinant to the student ID, or student ID should not be depend on the student name. So we have this point right now. We don't have this relation. So we are taking these 2 points. We are taking these two one. Student name is depend on the student ID and student marks are depend on the student name. So from the transitive relationship, we can say student ID determinant to the marks or marks are depend on the student ID. This is the point. Now it is clear right now.
Yes, sir.
But in between, the student name determinant to student ID or student ID depend on the student name. If persisting this FD or this function dependency is available, then we can't apply we can't use the transitive dependencies. That is the point. So that is the logic you have to think. If it is available, then we can't say this is a transitive. But if it does not exist, then we can say we can say 100% surely this is our transitive dependency. If it is not available. Okay. So multivalued function dependency is available. No, I have already explained this one to other slot. Not dependent. Student age is depend on the student name. So student name and student age both are not independent variable, independent attributes. So that's why the multivalued function dependencies cannot be stand in this relation. Now clear right now? Just tell me, is it clear?
So, but how they are not independent? Because like student, like we cannot judge a age from student name.
See, student name is depend on the student ID. You are agree with this one? Logically, tell me yes or no.
Yes, sir.
And student age is determinant on student age is depend on the student ID. Can we say? Is it true?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, but okay. So these are the we can say student ID is an attribute which is having by the multi-valued dependencies. Okay. Now it is agree.
Yes, sir.
But let us prove this point right now. From the logical, you can say the student age is depend on the student name. So this is logically we can say student age will be depend on the student name. So it means there are relationship between these two attributes. So but these attributes should be independent. There should not be these two attributes should not consist any kind of the dependencies. If they are having the dependencies, then multi-valued attribute or multi-valued functional dependencies should not be. That is only meaning. Because what happened logically, student name and student age definitely we can have a relationship. Rather than you can put the student name and student phone number, we can say this will be dependency will be, yeah, room number you can take. Rather than the age, if I'm taking the class number or room number, not the class number, because that is dependency, we can room number. So room number is dependent on student ID. So you have in which room student has to go. So by putting the room ID or room number, we can give. So dependency, we can say room number is dependent on the student ID. Yes, it is agree. And student name is dependent on the student ID. It is agree. But there will be no relationship between the student name and room number, because in a room, if we are founding, there is no relationship. Suppose that we don't have a relationship, then at a time multi-valued will be applicable. But here practically you can say, logically you can say there will be 100% relationship between the student age and student name. So that's why the multi-valued function dependency cannot be stemmed. That is only meaning. Now clear?
Yes, sir.
We have to find the appropriate logically implication. So that's why the fourth normal form, or we are talking about the multiple normal form, it is not easy to implement practically. At a student level, you can implement first normal form, second normal form, third normal form maximum. It's a student project. We are finding the normalization of the database, third level only, and you can also implement the BCNF for the betterment. But when try to implement the four normal form or the multi-value normal form, it is not easy to implement because you have to identify, and we are finding the many times there are relationship exist. So four normal form or fifth normal form, four normal form till four normal form, the banking application, real banking application supporting only the fourth normal form or multi-value normal form. PZNF or fifth normal form, it is basically implemented by the industries company, industries project only. So it is not hard, it is not easy to implement. Maximum we can implement or we can design our project in the best project we are designing in our life, that is supported by only the BCNF. Because normalization, it is not an easy task. But if you're doing the normalization, first norm form, second, third, and BCNF, you can do in easy way. But when talking about the fourth norm form or this one multi-value norm form, it is not easy. That is the only meaning. So you must be expertise to find the independent variable or independent attributes, and that is a more important case. But here I am taking a simple example to explain my idea. What is a multi-value functional dependencies? Now it is clear to all right now. Anyone who need to ask any question? Yes, tell me. Anyone who need to ask any question?
No, sir.
Okay. So in the table, student name, student ID is the Treble function dependencies. As we have seen, student ID is a subset of the student ID, student name. So this is the technical term you have to write in the examination properly. Do not write this is not a part of it is subset. Use a proper term. Okay. So student ID, student name. So we know the student ID, we know the student name. Student name is not a subset of the student ID. So hence it is a non-trivial function dependency as we have seen. Second point. Third form. Third point. Student name is depend on the student ID. So we know the student ID, we know the student name. We know the marks and we know the student name. So we know the student name, we know the marks. So therefore, according to the rule of the transitive dependency, student ID is determinant to the marks that should hold. And that is makes sense that because if we know the student ID, then we know his or her mark. So this is the trivial part. This is the trivial function dependencies. This is the non-trivial function dependencies. And this is what this is known as the transitive function dependencies. So these are the three kind of the dependencies we have seen, as well as the multi-valued function dependencies we have also seen. Consider this example and find the various function dependencies in the relationship. Okay, tell me right now. Yes, tell me right now. Trivial function dependencies. What would be trivial function dependencies? Can anyone tell me right now? Yes, tell me. Find the function dependencies between these different attributes. See the relation. And tell me, is it possible or not? Find the proper dependencies. Yes, tell me. Okay, step by step I will ask. Is there a relationship between the name and course? Dependency. Is it relationship? Is it dependency? We can say. Say yes or no.
Yes.
So what is the relationship?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell? Yes, sir. What is the relationship? Can you tell me? Dependency is also available between these 2 points. Yes, please tell me right now. Just tell me. I need the answer.
No. So like
Non-trivial.
Okay, this you're talking about the non-trivial, but this you are not reading the question properly. You need to find the various functional dependencies in the relation which are satisfied. It means we need to write the dependencies. We are not talking about the here non-trivial, trivial, and we need to find the dependencies between the attributes only. Do not think about right now the non-trivial, trivial, and we can say other one. You have to find the dependencies between these two attributes. Is there dependencies between the course and name? Is there dependencies between the course and name?
No, sir.
So this will not be possible. Okay. Is there relationship between the telephone number and name?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that is, yeah. What is that? What is it?
So like telephone number is depend on the name.
So I can write here telephone number is depend on the name. So we can say name determinant to telephone number. Can I write like this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so yeah, based on your observation, I am writing this one right now. Good one. Now, major are depend on the name. Major are depend on the name. Major means subject. Subject are depend on the name. Just think and tell me right now.
No, sir.
Why? You are telling me why. You're telling me no. Then why? You're telling me yes, and then why?
So because many students can do the same major.
Yeah, super answer, because you are not a single student who's opting the same course. There are thousand people who can opt the same course. Yeah, of course. So there will be no relationship between the name and major. Yes, we can say this could be. But the point here I am observing over here, if you are a student, then you must be known to your subject. You are a student, then you must be known to your subjects. Then this is the problem. So Jyoti is the name of the student who is opting the math. Their telephone number is dependent. I am 100% agree this one. But what is the is or her spellation? She belong to the computer science. She belong to the double E. So this measure just like the spellation we can say. So what is the measure? So this is a factor, or this could be depend on this point. So I can write the name or the subject, or name is determinant to this point. So major is the main of the subject or main spellation that is depend on the name. So of course we can say. Our professor depend on the student name. A
No, sir.
professor, why?
So
Professor
many
depend on.
students can be taught by one professor.
That is a good point you're observing. So, because in the practical, if you're speaking over here, in which course you have taken the admission, definitely major is a subject or major is spellation. That is we can say. So this is an important point. This is the point we have understood. And name and major. So we can say this is also applicable, because in which course the student has been taken admission. So this will be dependency. But professor, we can't say the professor is not depend on the name of the student. Even professor is not depend on the course. Professor is not depend on the telephone number. Professor is not depend on the major. So we have to identify not the name only. We have to identify the relationship between the dependencies between the each and every attribute as well. So professor are not depend on the name, course, and telephone number and major. But can we say professor are depend on the course?
Sir, like courses are dependent on professor.
Course, how it is possible? Professor is just floating the course. So it's a choice of the professor. As a professor, I'm choosing the database management system. So this database management system course it depend on the my. So I'm floating this course. Yes, of course, definitely I'm depend on the this course. But as a so professor are depend on the course. I'm 100% agree with this point. So as a professor, I'm depend on the course, but which course I'm floating, so the relationship should be properly. So can you tell me right now, is it true or not? So professor are depend on the course, is it true? Because as a professor, I must be depend on the course, but which course I'm floating to the student. So student cannot the, so professor are depend on the course, that is the point, I can accept this point. Telephone numbers depend on the course, major are depend on the course, tell me right now. Telephone number depend on the course.
No, telephone number is not dependent on course.
And major depend on the course. Could be because in which spellation you are taking, so respectively we have the some subjects. So I can write over here measure or depend on the course. So I can write this course. Yes, of course, it's also possible. So measure is the spellation that can be depend on the course. Tell me yes or no. I'm writing here. It is true or not?
Sir, like according to our majors, our courses are decided. So I think major should be the determinant.
Major should be dependent, so course are depend on the major. So I can just for understanding purpose, I can write the reverse symbol for understanding purpose. It means you are taking this example as a major or determinant to the course. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Sir, history is in the course and the major is math, so how can it be dependent?
That is a great point you're observing. That is a point because the course we have the history and the major we have the maths. We are talking about this relation only. So no relationship will be persisting over here. That is a point we have to understand. So the student just point out the good point over here. Due to this reason, there will be no relationship between the codes and majors. That is the point. If in the, here we have the history, here we have the some major subject. So math is not a part of the history, and history is not a part of the maths. So no relationship is persisting between here. Yeah, political science and we can make the political science and history. No, there's no relationship. So relationships are not existing here properly over here. So we can't conclude this relationship or this functional dependencies properly because no here justifiable data is not available over here because our data values are not justifying the relationship between measure and code. So I have to discard this point right now. Now it is true.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yes, tell me.
And the second relation that we have written, like name is determinant to major.
Hmm.
I think
See,
it should be there, but
major is saying to us, see what is the in which course and which admission in which spellation you have taken the admission. Suppose Jyoti has taken the admission, the major subject that is a maths. So she has taken the admission in mathematics. Anita is the just like to take the admission in the Hindi. So she has taken the admission in the Hindi spellation course, like just like this one, in the spellation topic. So Jyoti belong to the maths only. Okay, so that is our point. So big C. Look at this point. Jyoti belong to the maths, and Jyoti is also belong to the here the maths. It means this is the relationship. This from the data we can say there's a relationship between the name and measure. That is the point. If Jyoti in the third point, if Jyoti is not observing the opting the math, or she is opting the different course, so no relationship, no functional dependencies will be persisting. That is the point, but it is persisting the same thing, so we can say and the because it's just choosing the major as a chemistry when he of the course physical chemistry, and then when because chosen the major as a chemistry, and at a time he has opted the political science. So that is the point. So that's why the we can say the relationship between major and name will be 100%. So that's why I have written over here. Now it is clear.
yes, like relation will be there, but sir, I think major should be determinant.
Major you can do, but the name is depend on the major or major depend on the name. So see, from which direction you are reading the statement. Suppose you are reading the statement, subjects are depend on the name. So here what we are doing, we are giving the priority to the subjects. Subjects are depend on the name, but here the name are determinant to the major. It means what we are doing, the subjects are dependent on the name. It means who have been opted this course. That is only meaning. So what you are thinking, what you are writing, it's your choice, no issue. You can amendment this course. If you can do anything, no issue.
Okay, sir.
Okay, but the thing we have to understand, if we need to make the transitive relationship, if we need to make the multi-valued, so that we can justify this point right now. So that's why from this point you can say telephone number and measure are telephone number and measure are independent. So if we need to write the name and multi-valued, so it is also possible. So name is an attribute which can handled by the telephone number and measure. So here we can also represent it by the multi-valued function dependency. So from this example we can say that is only meaning.
Yes, sir.
Nowadays, yeah, so here we can also put the multi-valued. So it is also possible if I do we need to write name name, determinant 2, telephone number, and major. So if I'm putting this one like this one, because of the multi-valued dependency, so it is also applicable over here. Okay, now come to the point grid. Grid are depend on
Sir,
the name. Yes, tell me.
sir, I have a doubt. So
Yes.
we have to taken like name is determinant of major because like a student can opt for any major. So, sir, if that's the case, so then name should also be determinant of professor because we can choose any professor we want. So, like we can opt for the professors for the course.
You are speaking the name is determinant to the professor. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
So professor are depend on the students.
Yes, sir. So, because we are opting for the professors we want for that course.
Logically, professor are depend on the students. If the student are not attending the class, student are not passing the grade, student not appearing the examination. Practically, tell me right now. So dependency of the student will be there.
So, could you repeat?
I'm speaking. Professor are depend on the name of the students.
Okay.
Okay. So Jyoti and when she is opting the course under the major mathematics, then professor is the major staff. Okay. And when Jyoti chosen the maths course and his course was a math, then she belonged to the another professor that is Mr. Kumar. So here what is the point? The name and professor attribute are not dependent because here we are having the different data values. So this is the point we are discarding this point right now because when he chooses the he has chosen the chemistry as a major course and major subject and course was the physical chemistry and the political science. But at the time, the Mr. Chaubey and the Mr. Pandey was the were the teachers or were the professors. Then what happened at the time? So dependency is not like between these. So dependency we have to identify from the data. That is only meaning. So if data is available, then from we can easily determine the functional dependencies.
Okay, sir. Got it.
That is only meaning. So if
Uh,
Jyoti has chosen the major subject as a mathematics and course we have the history, no issue. Jyoti has chosen the major as a mathematics and course as maths, no issue. But professor should be same. So we can say the relationship between professor name student name will be there. But here we are finding the different names. So there will be no functional dependencies. And what is the definition of functional dependencies? A functional dependency means an attribute should be functional dependent on the another attribute. That is the meaning of the functional dependency definition. An attribute should be depend on the functionally depend on the another attribute functionally. But it is what is the function? It is I'm observing two professor Jyoti has been opted. So no dependencies here. So that's why that we don't have the relationship between the name and professor. That is only meaning.
so basically for functional dependency, we need to find a one-to-one relation between the.
Yes, yes, yes. One to one and one to many. If it is one to many, then what a kind of thing we are observing. And most of the time, one to one we have to follow in the our data. That is only meaning. So functional dependencies here. But in the examination, we will not give the many kind of the data set. But from this example, we have to identify the relationship between the students and its various attributes. Are they belong to the dependencies or are they not belong to dependencies? Now come to the point grid. So grid is depend on the student name and course and telephone number, major professor. What we can say? Okay, first come to the point. What is the relationship between professor and course? Professor and course is the relationship between. Tell me, relationship between the professor and course and professor and telephone. There is no relationship. Tell me right now. And professor and mathematics again we don't have a relationship because when we have the mess and then Mr. Saab will be there and when we have the mess then Mr. Kumar will be there. So tell me right now, is there a relationship between the professor and course or grade and course? So what is it? Tell me right now.
So that the professor will depend on the course.
Professor will depend on the course. Okay, because when we have the Mr. Shah, so history will be there. Mr. Bird's English, Mr. Kumar Maths, and Mr. Venkatesha Hindi, Mr. Mishra. So no duplicacy we have over here. No duplicacy we have. So we can say the professor are depend on the course. Yeah, this is a good point. So course are determinant to professor. So it means professor are depend on the course. Yes, I agree with this point. Now it is clear to right now.
So, but a single course can be taught by many professors.
Yeah, which one can tell? Yes, tell me which one. FC every day
So, like, there is a
in the,
possibility.
yeah, there is a possibility, but we are talking about the function dependency based on the our given data. So from this point, you can see observe over here the Mr. Shah is only teaching the history. Mr. Bus is only teaching English. Suppose Mr. Shah is teaching the history and Hindi, then dependency will not be applicable because he is only teaching the two courses.
Okay, sir. So
That is
means we have to find the functional dependencies just on the given
based
data.
on the given data. That is a good point. So what is there a relationship between the grade and other attributes? Is there a relationship between the grade and other attributes?
Name and grade.
Okay, so Jyoti got the grade A and Jyoti got the grade B two times. So now tell me. So there will be no relationship between the name and grade. No functional dependency will be exist between the name and grade because Jyoti is getting the grade two times and the different.
Yes, sir.
Grade
One
is
too many for both.
dependent on the course.
Yeah. Name and course.
Grade and course.
Okay, name and course. I can put the name and course. So name and course I can take. Name and course I can take. Depend on the grade. So grade are determined to the grade. So grade are depend on the name and course. Can we write like this one? Yes, tell me right now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any other changes if you want to do, then you can tell me. In which course Jyoti got the grade A? So in the history. In which course maths? So Jyoti got the B grade. So the mathematics. Same thing happening with the Vikas as well, and Mahesh and Sumita as well, and Nita as well. So this is a simple example. This is known as the finding the functional dependencies. So this is the functional dependencies we have found, we have determined by the our given data. This is another example I have already explained with others. Here we have this point right now. Their solution: name and telephone number we have determined, name and major we have determined, name and course basic determined, and course and professor depend on the course. Why? The present instance of the table does indicate the function dependency as well as the professor and course functional, but one needs more data to find the which of the two actually holds. So that is the point you have to understand. We can determine the course can be depend on the professor, but what is the reason? One needs to more data to find the which of the, so everything is depend on the actual data what we have. So our data is given, so from our given data we have to find the function dependencies. So this kind of the question may ask into the gate examination, very frankly speaking. This kind of a question may ask into the gate examination, then from our given data you have to find the function dependencies in a short way. Now clear how we have determined the solution. Now it is clear. Without moving to this example, I have already explained this point right now. Yes,
Yes,
tell me
sir.
right now. Okay, so see, in the gate examination, this kind of question may ask in the given data we will see, and from our given data we have to determine the function dependencies. So put to increase the complexity of the problem. But I have already explained this point right now from the given data only. Just follow the one-to-one relationship between the our attributes based on our data. We have to find the data dependencies. If it is possible, then it's okay. If it is not possible, then we have to discard such part. So we have chosen only the limited point right now. That is only. Now let us explore one more example. So what we have, this is a single valued functional dependencies. So single valued functional dependency is also known as a single or in which we have the single or one attribute only. So you can say student name are depend on the roll number. Is it true? Student name are depend on the roll number. So what do you think? The single valued means on the left side and right side we must have the single value. Okay. So roll number be a primary key and where we have the single name. Student name is a single value. So when single value are depend on the single values or student name is a single value or single attribute. So single attributes depend on the single attributes and we were talking about the about single valued functional dependency or single or one more attribute we can say. But the point you have to understand, this could be the trivial or this could be not trivial. But in the different books, we will found that a single valued attribute or single valued functional dependencies. It means we are talking about the single attribute or one attribute only. So student name will be the one and roll number will be one. It doesn't mean it is trivial or it doesn't mean it is a non-trivial. But that is the point. Now it is clear right now.
So student name is determinant of telephone number is a single valued function.
Yes, of course. Student name is determined to telephone number. Student telephone number is depend on the student name. Of course, this would be the single value. It doesn't mean it is trivial or non-trivial. It doesn't mean, but it is an example of the single value.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Now let us move to the next part. Fully functional dependencies. This is very colorful point we have. Fully functional dependencies. This is the point you have to understand properly right now. A functional dependencies P determined to Q is fully functional dependencies when you have to understand if a removal of any attributes A from the P, removal of any attribute A from the our P, we have the set of the attribute means the dependency does not hold many more. Like this example. Roll number, subject name, and paper hours. You can say. So roll number, paper hours are depend on the subject name and roll number. Papers are depend on the subject name and roll number. So which students, in which subject student is appearing in the paper. So it could be depend on the papers are. Suppose it is English paper. Suppose it is English paper. So I am giving the 2 hours. Suppose it is the Python programming based. So we have the 1 hour because we have the programming. So you student have to appear within the 1 hour only. But DBMS student has to appear 3 hours because there is a lengthy paper we have, so student has to appear into the long time they have to spend. But I'm removing one attribute, so dependency will not preserve more. So that is a dependency. We have the fully functional dependencies. We can say if you're removing anything, then dependency should not be hold more. If dependency should be hold more, then we can say it is a fully functional dependency. It means any single attribute you are removing, everything will be given. So roll number, subject name, and paper art. So paper art depend on the student subject name and student roll number. So this is dependency we have. From this point, if you are changing something, so paper art depend on the roll number, we can't justify. Papers are depend on the student roll number, we can't justify because we don't know in which paper, in which course student are facing the exam. Same thing, subject name and paper art. So papers are depend on the subject name. So it is not easy to determine and who is appearing in the which course. So the justification we can't determine over here. So that's why we have the here we have to keep in mind the given relation. Here it is the given roll number, subject name are determinant to the paper art. It means paper arts is depend on the student's subject name and subject student's roll number. That is the only meaning. So fully functional dependence. Now it is clear right now.
Yes, sir.
Anyone who need to ask any question here?
No, sir.
Okay. Suppose that I'm taking another example. Suppose your grades will be calculated if you are appearing in the all the papers. Now, this is the only means. Your result, your passing result will be calculated or generated when you are appearing in the all papers. So student is appearing in the all papers, then his or her result will be calculated. So result is what? Result is depend on the student's paper in which she or he is appearing. So this is the our fully functional dependence. Next, we have the partially functional dependencies. This partially functional dependencies, we have to understand one or more non-key attributes are functionally depending on a part of the primary key is called the partially functional dependencies. I'm not talking about the partial triple functional dependencies. I'm talking about the right now the partial functional dependencies. So one or more non-key attributes. So here you can say student subject's name and subject name, student name itself are the non-key attributes, and because here these are the non-key, why? Because they can have the duplicacy record is also possible. Now look at the DBMS is coming 2 times, so duplicate record is possible. And you are not a single student whose name is the Kunal Batra. There are 1,000 Kunal Batras taking the or facing the exam. But roll number is the unique identification by which we can easily identify who is the Kunal Batra and or that who is that Kunal Batra. So when we have the one or more key attributes and they are functionally dependent on a part of the primary key, so we can say the partially functional dependencies. So subject name are depend on the roll number, yes, of course. And why? Because who's have been opted this course, and student name is depend on the roll number, so we can easily say. And by the combination of the or by the set of the subject name and student name, we can say this is depend on the roll number, so we can say this would be a partially functional dependencies. So roll number and subject name are depend student name are depend on the these 2 points. This is not a fully functional dependency. Student name is also hold student roll number. So since roll number is also determinant to the student name, so student name is depend on the student roll number, so that is also holds true. So this is what is the partially functional dependencies. That is the point you have to understand over here. Any one of the things which are the non-key attribute are only functionally dependent, only functionally dependent. So based on the primary key, so this is a partially functional dependency. But why? Because subject name and the student name, these are the two attributes in which the duplicate record is also possible. That is only meaning. Now it is clear right now? Okay, just tell me right now. It is clear?
So in partially functional dependency, so if we remove any attributes from P, so but the dependencies still exist.
Yes, definitely. Because if I'm removing the student subject's name, so at least the relationship between the student name and roll number will be exist. If I'm removing the student name, so relationship between the student subject name and roll number will be exist. Yes, that's true. But that will not be considered as a full function dependency. That will be considered as a partially function dependencies. Yes, tell me right now. Is it true? Now it is clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So transitive function dependencies, no need to discuss more. I have already discussed. If pin code of the student is depend on the roll number and city name is depend on the pin code. So we can say the student roll number determinant to the city name or city name are depend on the roll number. So we can say. So pin code is depend on the roll number. So and city name is depend on the pin code. So undoubtedly with the help of transitive function dependencies, we can say city name will be depend on the student roll number due to the transitive function dependencies. But keep in mind here, the roll number and city name, the roll number and city name, that should not be exist. So it means student roll number is depend on the city name should not be exist. Okay, that is the point. And we can say the pin code or student roll number is depend on the pin code should not be exist. If it is existing, then this kind of relationship will not be happening. Now it is clear right now. This simple example we have already seen previously. Yes, tell me right now. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And triple function dependencies we have already seen. What are triple function dependencies? Yes, student roll number, student name we are taking. So student roll number is a subset of the this set student roll number and student name. So this is known as the triple function dependencies, undoubtedly. Okay, and non-trivial as well. Okay, students. So this is just introductory part of the our type of the functional dependencies we have seen today.